Congratulations on the film. I really, really loved it, and I believe I'm not just saying that because you two were right in front of me. I genuinely really enjoyed the film. Watching this is very clearly a South by Southwest movie. It's what a lot of fans think of when they think of the festival South by Southwest and the type of programming that they usually have. Lee, I imagine it's a bit bittersweet to premiere this movie at this festival, which is kind of the perfect fit for South by Southwest, but again, not being able to show it to that energetic midnight crowd.
Absolutely. I mean, it is in many ways a dream come true because it is our debut feature, and South by Southwest is a great festival and a fantastic fit, as you've already said. But yeah, it would be nice to be there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
In person. But that said, I mean, to look on the bright side, I think this way it probably opens the film up to a wider audience to a certain extent.
Hmm.
So even though we may not experience the buzz of the festival, I guess we will get a broader, wider range of crowd
Hmm.
looking at it, which is great, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
we want to spread the message far and wide.
Sure. Does it take some of the pressure off your shoulders then, this being your debut? Like, I imagine if it was in person and you had to show something that you've poured so much time into a crowd of people, I imagine it would be pretty nerve-wracking.
It would be nerve wracking, but also it quite fascinating just to see how people react and when they react. It's a
Hmm.
kind of study in reception theory, I guess, sitting in
Yeah.
an auditorium, watching an audience as they wince or laugh or cry or
Yeah.
hang their heads, wondering
Hmm.
what the hell we're doing.
Um, well, Lee, although this is your feature film debut, you have had a lot of experience directing television as well as a documentary. What would you say is the key difference that you found in directing something for TV versus directing an indie movie?
Um, in one word, freedom.
Hmm.
There's a whole lot of freedom in directing a movie, which you just don't get with the television project. With a television project, you have um, executive producers and uh, commissioners, and the channel kind of the broadcaster, I guess, breathing down your necks. Um, I'm being quite no holds barred here, but there you go. Whereas with our movie, I mean, it was. I mean, of course, we have funders and all the rest of it, but effectively, we were marooned in the Welsh countryside in the middle of June and July, and it was Roger and myself kind of making it up as we go along. No, that's not fair. I mean, it was very planned. No, it was very planned actually, and because it has to be planned in order to kind of make a movie at this budget level, but with this ambition. But it was, yeah, it's the freedom, and freedom is a great thing. It's sort of double-edged freedom. It's enjoyable to have that freedom, but at the same time, it's quite terrifying. And I think it's
Yeah.
probably the most terrified I've been, because when you're operating in this sort of parameterless void, you can go in any direction, and then you have to choose, and choice is terrifying.
Yeah. You mentioned your collaboration with Roger. What was the collaborative process like for the two of you? Like, Lee, did you want Roger's influence on set, or did you mostly kind of take what he wrote and made your own interpretation of the text?
You probably better ask Roger. Did I mangle your text?
Lee and I have worked together a number of times over the years, and I think one of the things that works about or is successful about our collaboration really is that we share very similar tastes and values. So I think that means that there's a lot of trust. And what's fair to say is Lee doesn't interfere too much with what's on the page
Mhm.
during the process of writing it. He's always got some very astute notes.
Yeah.
He says he normally limits it to kind of like 4 or 5 headlines, and they're always very perceptive about what's going on.
Mhm.
And then there's that period before production where we're discussing who the team are going to be, and um, who the cast's going to be, and and the style, and kind of all that sort of stuff. But then pretty much when Lee gets shooting, I get out of his way
Mhm.
because he's done so much prep and he's got a very clear sense of what it is he wants to achieve. And that's our ethos, I think, when we work with people, having made a lot of television together in the past, is as freelancers ourselves, if you've got the right people in the right jobs, you give them the creative freedom to get on and do their best work.
Mm-hmm.
So we work well together. I think it's fair to say we kind of we don't interfere with what the other is doing.
Excellent. Lee, what did you think about Roger's comments there?
I think he was spot on. I'm very astute. No. I think that what is great about Roger as a writer is that he's incredibly flexible. So, often he comes to me with wacky ideas, and I'll say, "Yeah, great, that's a good idea. It reminds me of this," and then I may show him a film or point him in the direction of, I don't know, an image or whatever, and then he goes away and he writes it, and he's incredibly fast at writing, and is incredibly flexible. So he does. If when confronted with an obvious kind of logistical problem, he will alter the script accordingly, and even if I have a sort of an aesthetic issue that I want to tackle or whatever, he will listen. He's a very good listener, is our Roger. He should be a therapist. He's very good at listening, and then he responds. So yeah, that's it really. I mean, and it's about space, isn't it? It's about allowing each other the space to get on with what we do best, I guess.
Yeah.
I think if I started to write, I think it would be a bit of a mess.
For the two of you, was there an aspect of this film that while you were shooting, you had written a certain way in the screenplay, but once you actually got on set and were interacting with the actors and were in the space, what was a moment or a scene that really changed or evolved for you?
It's always evolving, isn't it? It's because you mentioned the other big sort of collaborator there, and that's the cast. And it strikes me that I always have an idea of how a piece maps out in terms of the interior landscape of the characters, and then they come along and often will enrich that and will take it off in a far more interesting direction. So then I really like actors who like to think and who turn up with ideas and concepts. They don't scare me. I think some directors are scared by actors who think. They see them as these sort of alchemical beings who are temperamental and who ruin the master plan. But I kind of like to embrace them and incorporate them within that blueprint. And then, yeah, in terms of this film, I mean, every scene was a little bit of a shock, I guess. There are some, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but there are scenes in there that I mean, I had an idea that they might end up something like that, but they're always sort of, they always end up being more than the sum of their parts in a way. And that's exciting. That's collaboration for you.
Well, we've mentioned it a few times here. So the cast of this film, when you're going through the casting, what was it about? I believe it's Anne Elwey. Is that how you pronounce her name?
It's Anne S, actually.
Anne S. Okay.
It's down as Anne in the promotional material, but actually it's Anne S. It's a typo.
So when you met Anne S, and she was auditioning for this character as Katie, I'm sorry. When you were going about casting this movie, what was it about her that you really think that she embodied this character? Roger, you can chime in as well, since you you wrote the character.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, because it's quite a small creative community here in Wales, so you tend to know most people, and we know a lot of actors. So when we knew we were making the film, that conversation begins, and Anis was somebody that was up there from the beginning, really, and Lee knew that he wanted to work with her. So that was one of the easiest decisions we had to make. We needed an actor for that role who was going to get what we were doing, understood what we were trying to achieve, because you've seen the film and there's an awful long time there where she doesn't speak. And that would freak a lot of actors out who would feel, I really feel like I should make a sound here. I really feel like I need a couple of words. But Anna's just got it, and she had the confidence and the self-belief to to achieve what was written on the page.
I think what's quite interesting in that front, Roger, I seem to remember her actually cutting some of her words and lines, the few that she had. So I mean, yeah, she understood that character and understands it inside out. And I think as an actress anyway, she has a wonderful sort of presence and stillness, and I think that's visible on screen and sort of leaps out at people, and she really draws the audience in. I mean, we shouldn't really empathize with her, should we? I'm not sure. I mean, she's a force of uh, devastation and destruction. Some might say evilness, but actually, I think as an audience, we are drawn into her sort of dilemma, and in the end, sort of identify with the actions that she takes. Strangely,
yeah.
What does that say about me as a person? I'm not sure, but that's the way I feel.
Well, this film does have a lot of direct influences, or it addresses very environmental ideas or themes. I don't want to go too much into spoiling things, because I think that this is a very surprising movie. Going into this not knowing anything about it really takes you for a ride. But Roger, when you're going about writing this film and you want to address these themes or these motifs, how do you go about writing it in a way that doesn't seem too obvious? Or did you want to be a bit more overt and really, hammer the audience in with this idea?
I wanted the idea to emerge. We both signed up to this idea of trying to create something that is particularly cinematic, and also therefore I think enigmatic. And certainly from, you've got that first scene which very much gives you the information I think you need to be able to join the dots. Something which is very much kind of looking at that environmental destruction, and then from then on, it's a slow process where almost like a mystery, the audience are piecing together the different bits of information that you're releasing. And that's the hard thing about the writing. It's knowing how much to give and how much is going to be too much.
Sure.
But the wonderful thing is, you can shoot it, and then when you get into the edit, you can make decisions there about, are we giving too much away at this point? Are we giving enough in order to sustain people's interests?
So walk me a bit through about how you got about making this movie. Roger, did you approach Lee with the idea? Can you tell me a little bit about how this all started?
Well, we'd wanted to make a movie for a long time, and it's something that we, as television people, I think we both agree that we went into the idea of making a film a little bit too cocky, where we thought, we've made hours of TV. This will be quite a straightforward process. We write the script, we get the money, and we do it. And that wasn't the case at all. And we knew that we wanted to make a film in the Welsh language. So there were conversations around, well, if we want to make a Welsh language film, we want it to travel and we want it to be seen internationally, what kind of film does it need to be? And we're both people who enjoy our horror movies. And we knew that by making a genre movie, stand a better chance on a very basic level of finding an audience when it's in another language, and a lesser spoken language as well. And we just spent ages talking. We had long conversations about, right, what are we doing here? And our work always says something, we always, the work that we originate, so it's always about something. It'll be grappling with something political, or something to do with society, or sexual politics. There's always something going on. And it absolutely felt that if we wanted this to be a successful horror, that it needed to have that agenda. So we spent, kind of over a year probably talking about what this film could be. And when we had a sense of the kind of film that we wanted to make and what the rough arc of the story would be, I went away and wrote. And as Lee says, I tend to write. I write the stuff I'm excited about quite quickly. And then a few weeks later, there was a script, and we bounced that around.
You said a few weeks?
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty
But,
quick
you know,
turnaround.
but when I talk to writing groups and writing students, I always say a lot of the writing just happens in your head. Don't feel as though because you haven't been sat at your MacBook, not doing anything, that you haven't been working. You can kind of go for a coffee, go and walk the dog, do whatever it is you do, and think about it. And the film will write itself in your head. So when you get a sense of what it is, I find that the best way really is to try and get it down as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you've got the redrafting, which is the hardest part of it all, really.
Sure.
When you go back and fix those problems and take on board people's notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think once we had a strong sense of the script, Lee was excited about it, and then it had the momentum that we needed it to have to get there.
Excellent. Well, last question here as we're wrapping up, gentlemen. When you were working on this film, are there any lessons that you took away, this being your first feature film, that you're hoping to carry on to future projects?
Lessons. That's hard. That's a hard one. That's the hardest question we've had.
Oh, good.
I think because we've done it now, this is the other thing as well. Obviously we knew this going into it, but the film industry is so different to the TV industry. And whilst we'd made a short film, we hadn't made a film like this and then tried to take it to market, I guess. And certainly there were some issues around rights and kind of like having enough stills of the shoots, on-set stills, all that kind of stuff, which you realise when you've made it. Oh, I wish we'd done that, or I wish we cleared that, or I wish we got that sorted.
Mm-hmm.
And going into it the next time around, we would be far more prepared. I think. I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think preparation is everything, right? But actually, would I do it any differently? Probably not. Actually, there are loads of lessons you learn along the way, but I don't think I'd do it any differently. I think the one thing that's key, I think, is, which Roger sort of touched on, is that genre aspect, and I probably didn't think I'd be necessarily a genre director. But actually, it seems to me that it does sort of open doors and appeals to sort of the marketplace. So it definitely means that our film will probably get seen by more people than it might have if it was just a Welsh language drama. So always try and sort of, I guess, tailor it to the marketplace, I guess.